Clara stepped off the stagecoach like she was stepping off the edge of her old life. Mud splashed her boots at once, cold and thick, as if the ground itself wanted to pull her down and keep her. Rain had been falling for days, turning the main street of Pine Hollow, Colorado, into a brown river. The town clung to the mountainside, small and worn, with dark rooftops and crooked porches under the sharp teeth of the Rockies. It looked poor. It looked tired. It looked like the kind of place where a woman could vanish. The driver leaned down and shouted through the drizzle that the ride was over. Clara did not answer. She only tightened her grip on her travel case. It was heavier than it looked, and not because of clothes. Inside, hidden under folded fabric and oiled cloth, rested the tools she had promised herself she would never touch again. She had run 2,000 miles from Boston to get here. Every mile was bought with lies. Every mile was meant to bury a name that could destroy her. A man came out of the biggest building on the street, a 2-story structure with Barrett's General Store painted across the front. He walked toward her with steady steps, not hurried, not unsure. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, and dressed like a man who worked for his living. Silver touched his hair at the temples. His eyes were the color of storm clouds. "Miss Wynne?" he asked, careful with the words. Clara lifted her chin. "Yes, Clara Wynne, from Boston." "I'm Samuel Barrett," he said. His voice was deep and calm, the kind that did not waste sound. "Welcome to Pine Hollow." He reached for her travel case. Clara pulled it back without thinking. The move was quick, sharp, like a reflex. Samuel's eyebrows lifted slightly. "It's heavy," he said. "I have it," Clara replied. Her words came out too hard. She forced a small smile to soften them. "I prefer to carry my own things." Samuel studied her for a second longer. Clara felt it like a hand on her skin. He was reading her posture, the quality of her dress, the way her fingers trembled around the handle. He did not press her, but Clara could see questions in his silence. He gestured toward the store. "Your rooms are upstairs. I hope they'll suit you." Clara followed him across the muddy street. She felt eyes on her. An older woman paused her, sweeping to watch. 2 men outside the saloon leaned close and grinned. A little girl with tight braids stared with open wonder. Clara kept her face calm and her steps steady, as if she belonged here, as if she had not arrived carrying a secret that could ruin everything. Inside the store, the air smelled of coffee, leather, and tobacco. Barrels and sacks crowded the floor. Cans and fabric filled the shelves. A narrow staircase rose at the back. Samuel unlocked the upstairs door and held it open. The rooms were small but clean. A table, a stove, a simple bedroom with an iron bed, a washstand. Even a little water closet that felt like a luxury this far from the East. A vase of wildflowers sat on the table. Someone had scrubbed the floor with lye soap. The sharp, clean scent hit Clara's nose. "I had Mrs. Chen clean," Samuel said, staying in the doorway like he did not want to cross some invisible line. "She runs the boarding house. She left bread and coffee and preserves. Thought you might want time to settle." "That's kind," Clara said. She placed her travel case near the bedroom door, where she could see it, where she could protect it. Samuel set a brass key beside the flowers. "We'll talk in the morning, about expectations, about the 3-month courtship we agreed to in letters." Clara nodded. "Yes." He hesitated as if he wanted to say more. Then he touched the brim of his hat and turned to leave. "Samuel," Clara said before she could stop herself. He paused and looked back. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Why place an advertisement for a bride?" His jaw tightened, almost too small to notice. "Same reason you answered, I expect." His eyes held hers. "A man gets lonely out here, wants a future, someone to build with." Then his voice lowered. "What's your reason, Clara? Why would a woman like you come to a mining town in the middle of nowhere?" Quote. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her throat. She had practiced this answer on the long ride west. She had repeated it until it sounded smooth and simple. "I was a school teacher in Boston," she said. "The family I worked for moved away. I didn't want to follow. I wanted a fresh start." Samuel watched her long enough that Clara feared he could hear her thoughts. Then he nodded once. Fresh starts are good. This country was built on them. When he left and the door closed, Clara leaned both hands on the table and let out a breath she did not know she was holding. She had made it. She was here. No one in Pine Hollow knew the truth. Clara carried the travel case to the bed and opened it. The instruments lay inside like sleeping snakes. Scalpels gleamed in the fading light. Forceps. Scissors. Even a bone saw wrapped in cloth. Her fingers brushed the handle of her favorite scalpel, and a memory flashed through her mind, bright and cruel. A white hospital room. A man's angry face. A woman dying despite everything Clara did. She snapped the case shut and shoved it under the bed. Those tools belonged to Dr. Clara Wynne, and that woman, she told herself, was dead. The next morning came pale and cold, with wagon wheels creaking outside and the smell of wet pine in the air. Clara, dressed in a simple gray day dress, pinned her hair into a modest bun and tried to look like what she claimed to be, a plain woman seeking a plain life. A knock sounded. "Clara," Samuel called through the door. "I brought breakfast." She opened it to find him holding a tray of biscuits, jam, and steaming coffee. He looked cleaner today, freshly shaved, but still solid and steady. He set the tray on the table and stayed near the door again, keeping distance. "I thought we should talk," he said, "about what these next 3 months will look like." Clara poured coffee into tin cups. Her hands had stopped trembling. Or maybe she had simply learned how to hide it better. Samuel spoke in a calm, direct way. He wanted to introduce her to the town, take her to church on Sundays, help her find purpose here. He mentioned the schoolhouse, the need for a teacher, but he did not push. He offered something Clara had not expected: choice. At the end of 3 months, he said, they would marry if it felt right. If not, he would pay her passage to anywhere she wanted to go, no questions asked. Clara stared at him, surprised by the fairness of it. This man did not sound like a hunter looking for a servant. He sounded like a man trying to do things right. She almost believed she could make this work. Then the world outside shattered. A scream rose from the street. Then another. Running footsteps. Shouts that cut through the air like cracked whips. A bell began to ring hard and fast, the sound sharp enough to crawl under her skin. Clara moved to the window. People were rushing toward the edge of town, toward the mine entrance. Men ran with fear on their faces. Women clutched children and cried out names. The bell kept ringing, urgent and wild. From below she heard Samuel's voice, loud with alarm. "Collapse at the Western Star!" he shouted. "They're bringing out casualties!" Quote, Clara's fingers dug into the windowsill until her knuckles turned white. Casualties meant blood, broken bones, crushed ribs, men dying on the ground while people stood helpless. She told herself she had made a promise. She was not a doctor anymore. She was not. But her feet had already turned toward the bedroom, toward the case under the bed, toward the truth she had tried to bury. And as the bell screamed again, Clara knew the town had just thrown her secret into the open. Clara's boots struck the wooden stairs like hammer blows as she ran down into the store and out into the street. Rain still fell, but the air felt hotter now, thick with dust and fear. People surged toward the mine road in a wave, and Clara pushed through them with her travel case clutched tight to her chest. At the edge of town, the Western Star Mine yawned open like a torn wound. Timber supports leaned at odd angles. Men shouted orders. Others clawed at debris with bare hands, eyes wide, faces streaked with mud. A miner stumbled out supporting another man whose leg bent the wrong way. White bone showed through torn flesh. The injured man made a sound that did not even seem human. Clara stopped thinking. Her body moved as if it remembered its true name. "Lay him down," she ordered, pointing to a patch of ground away from the entrance. She dropped to her knees and snapped open the case. The miner carrying the injured man stared at her. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who can help," Clara said. Her voice was sharp, steady, and strong. "What's his name?" Tommy Reeves." Tommy's face had gone gray, his breathing short and fast. Clara pressed 2 fingers to his neck. His pulse raced like a trapped animal. Shock. Blood loss. The fracture was a disaster, and if she waited, infection would take the leg, and maybe the man's life. She looked up at the crowd that had formed, frozen in fear, as if watching a storm they could not stop. "I need clean water," she said. "Bandages, whiskey. Now." A few people blinked, as if their brains could not accept a woman giving commands. Then they moved. Fear made them obey. Someone shouted, "Doc Mitchell's coming!" Quote. Clara glanced toward the hill and saw the town doctor struggling through the mud, his medical bag bouncing at his side. He was old, older than she had guessed. His shoulders sagged. His hands trembled even as he tried to hurry. Clara could see panic in his face before he even reached them. More miners came out of the shaft, dragging bodies. One man clutched his chest, coughing blood into his hands. Another lay limp, a gash across his scalp showing bone beneath the torn skin. There were too many. Doc Mitchell arrived, breathing hard. "Miss," he said, voice cracking, "step back. I'm the doctor here." Clara looked at him, then at Tommy's exposed bone, then back at the old man shaking hands. She felt something cold settle in her chest. This was not pride. This was survival. "With respect," she said, "that leg needs to be set now. Do you feel confident doing it?" Quote. Mitchell's face flushed. "Now see here." "Because if you don't," Clara cut in, "I can." His eyes narrowed. "And who are you to say that?" Clara should have lied, should have backed away, should have let the town's doctor handle it, even if it meant Tommy lost his leg. But she could not. "I have surgical training," she said. "I assisted physicians in Boston for years. I know what I'm doing." Another scream split the air as 2 more men were dragged forward, both bleeding. Mitchell's gaze darted between them, helplessness spreading across his face. His pride battled the truth of what he saw. Finally, he swallowed. "There's too many," he whispered. "I can't." "Then let me help," Clara said, softer now. "Just until we get through this." Mitchell stared at her, then nodded once, sharp and quick. "You take the leg," he said. "I'll handle the chest injury." Clean water arrived in a bucket. A bottle of whiskey followed. A handful of torn cloth and old sheets came next. Clara poured whiskey over Tommy's wound. He jerked and groaned, eyes rolling. She glanced up. "I need 4 strong men," she said, "to hold him down. This will hurt." Samuel Barrett pushed through the crowd, dirt on his face, fear in his eyes. He froze when he saw Clara's case open and the instruments laid out with perfect order. "Clara," he breathed, "what are you?" "Help me," she snapped, not looking at him. "Or move." Samuel's jaw tightened, but he dropped to Tommy's shoulders like a man taking his place in battle. Clara pointed at 2 miners. "Hold his hips." She pointed at a younger man with terrified eyes. "You hold his ankle. What's your name?" "Jake," he stammered. "Jake Morrison." "Jake," Clara said, "when I tell you to pull, you pull straight. No jerking, no stopping. Can you do that?" Jake swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am." Clara placed her hands around the fracture, feeling the broken bone ends under skin slick with blood. The memory of Boston tried to rise, but she crushed it down. This was not the past. This was now. This was a life in front of her, not a scandal behind her. "On 3, she said. 1, 2, 3, pull." Jake pulled, Tommy screamed. Samuel held him with iron strength. Clara guided the bone ends together, steady and sure, pushing and aligning until the legs straightened. She felt the moment the pieces slid into place. She did not celebrate. She did not breathe. She only moved to the next step. "Hold him," she said. "Do not let him move." She cleaned the wound, picking out grit and splinters with forceps. Then she stitched, her hands working with the quiet certainty of years. Her stitches were small, even, clean. She wrapped the leg tight, splinted it with boards, and tied it down with cloth. Beside her, Doc Mitchell struggled with the man coughing blood. Clara listened for 3 seconds and made her decision. "Doctor," she called, "he needs decompression." Mitchell's head jerked up. "What?" "Punctured lung," Clara said. "Large needle, left side, second space. You'll hear the air." Mitchell stared at her like she had spoken another language. "It's in my case," Clara said. "Sterilized. Take it." He hesitated, then grabbed the needle with shaking fingers. He did as she said. A hiss of air escaped. The coughing man's breathing eased. A low cry went up from the people watching. Some crossed themselves. Others just stared in shock. Clara did not stop. For the next 3 hours, Pine Hollow watched a miracle built from blood, grit, and hard skill. Clara set broken arms. She stitched torn scalps. She stopped bleeding with pressure and clamps. She barked orders, and grown men obeyed like soldiers. She turned the livery stable into a field hospital, sending women to boil water and tear sheets into strips. She made lines on the floor to keep the sick separated from the healthy. She forgot to be afraid. Only when the last man was laid down and the shouting faded did Clara finally lift her head. Half the town was staring at her. Women whispered behind hands. Men exchanged looks. Children watched with wide eyes. Doc Mitchell sat on a hay bale, his face pale, his hands still shaking, but his eyes fixed on Clara with something close to awe. Samuel stood in the doorway, arms crossed, rain dripping from his hat brim. His storm-gray eyes held her like a weight. Clara's dress was ruined, stained dark with blood and mine dust. Her hands looked like they belonged to someone else. Doc Mitchell cleared his throat. "Miss Wynne," he said, "I need a word, in private." Clara followed him outside, away from the watching crowd. The air was cooler here, but her skin still burned. Mitchell leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "You're a physician," he said. It was not a question. Clara's throat tightened. "I was." "You don't move like someone who only assisted," he said. "Those sutures were perfect. That reduction was clean. And you knew things I had to learn from books last month." Clara waited for anger, for jealousy, for a demand that she leave. Instead, Mitchell let out a dry laugh that sounded like old wood cracking. "Thank God you were here," he said. "My hand started shaking 2 years ago. I've been hiding it, managing. Praying no real crisis came." He lifted his trembling fingers. "Today I would have killed men through slowness and fear if you hadn't stepped in." Clara's stomach twisted. "You're not incompetent." "Maybe not," he said. "But I'm not enough anymore." His eyes sharpened on her. "This town needs a real doctor. So tell me, Miss Wynne, if you have the training, why are you hiding in Pine Hollow pretending to be a school teacher?" Clara's mouth went dry. "It's complicated." "I imagine it is," Mitchell said, "but word will spread. By morning, everyone will know what they saw. You can run again, or you can stay and be what this town needs." Before Clara could answer, footsteps came fast through the mud. Samuel rounded the corner, face tight with anger and something worse. "Clara," he said, "we need to talk." Mitchell gave Clara one long look, then shuffled away, leaving her alone with the man she planned to marry. The man she had lied to from the first moment. Samuel did not speak right away. His eyes moved over her stained hands, her ruined dress, her exhausted face. Finally, he said, "You told me you were a school teacher." Clara swallowed. "I taught nursing students," she said. It wasn't entirely a lie. "You're a doctor," he said, "a surgeon from what I saw." "I was," Clara replied. "I'm not anymore." Samuel stepped closer, voice low. "Why?" Clara felt the old shame rise, heavy and bitter. She could still see the Boston newspapers. She could still hear the whispers. She could still feel the doors closing. "A patient died," she said. "A banker's wife." Her appendix burst. She waited too long. "I operated, but the infection had already spread." Her voice trembled once, then steadied. "Her husband blamed me. He used his influence." The board stripped my license, not because I was careless, but because they wanted a reason to remove a woman. Samuel's jaw tightened hard. That's why you ran. Yes, Clara whispered. I came here to disappear. To be ordinary. Samuel looked past her toward the stable, where the injured men lay alive because she did not stay ordinary. Ordinary doesn't run toward blood and screaming, he said. Ordinary doesn't save 6 men in 3 hours. Clara's eyes stung. Now they'll ask questions. They'll hear the story, and they'll turn on me. Maybe, Samuel said. Or maybe they'll judge you by what they saw today, not by what some Boston board decided. Clara shook her head. You don't understand how cruel people can be. Quote. Samuel's voice dropped lower. I understand more than you think. He hesitated, then said, My brother robbed a bank in Denver, went to prison. When I came here, folks found out. Some wanted me run out, but I stayed. I worked. I proved myself. He held Clara's gaze. Everyone has a past. What matters is what you do now. Clara's chest tightened. What about us? She asked. You wanted a quiet wife, not a disgraced doctor with scandal behind her. Samuel's expression softened, but his eyes stayed serious. Today, I saw who you are, he said, and I'm not afraid of it. Clara barely breathed. Hope tried to rise, but fear shoved at it from the inside. Then Samuel held out his hand. Come on, he said. Let's go face the town together. Clara stared at his hand like it was a bridge over a canyon. She took it. They walked back toward the stable, toward the crowd, toward the moment where every lie would either break her or free her. Inside, Tommy Reeves lay awake now, pale but breathing, his leg bound tight. When he saw Clara, his eyes filled with tears. You saved me, he rasped. Clara opened her mouth to answer, but a voice cut through the room, sharp as a knife. Before we start crowning her a hero, the man said, stepping forward in a fine vest with a gold watch chain, I want answers. Clara turned. John Brennan, president of the Western Star Mining Company, stared at her like she was something dangerous. You say you're a doctor, Brennan said. Do you have a license to practice in Colorado? The stable went dead silent. Clara felt every eye on her. And the truth, the one she had been running from, rose right up to her throat. Clara held still as the question hung in the stable like smoke. John Brennan's eyes were hard, trained on her the way a man studies a problem he wants to control. Do you have a license to practice in Colorado? He asked again, louder this time, so no one could pretend they did not hear. Clara felt Samuel's hand at her back, steady and warm. She tasted iron in her mouth from hours of work and fear. She could lie. She could soften it. But the town had already seen her hands. They had already seen the truth. No, she said, I do not. A low murmur ran through the people. Some faces tightened. Others looked confused, as if they did not understand how a doctor could exist without a paper saying so. Brennan's mouth curled. So you're unlicensed, and you want us to trust you with our sons. Clara's voice stayed calm. Today you watched me save lives. You can judge me by that. Brennan stepped forward. Why don't you have a license, Miss Wynne? Clara's stomach clenched. The Boston shadow rose behind her eyes. She forced herself to keep breathing. A patient died in my care back east, she said. Her husband was wealthy. He blamed me. A medical board revoked my right to practice. Not because I was careless, but because they wanted me gone. Brennan's eyes flashed. So you killed someone? I did not, Clara said. Her voice sharpened like a blade. Sometimes people die, even when a doctor does everything right. You can pretend otherwise if it comforts you, but it will not change the truth. Brennan turned to Doc Mitchell. You're the town doctor, he said. You will not allow this. Doc Mitchell stood straighter than Clara had seen him stand before. His hands still trembled, but his voice did not. Without her, he said, we would be burying men tonight. Brennan scoffed. That's your opinion. It's fact, Mitchell said. And I'll say another fact. My hands are failing. I've been hiding it. I've been managing. Today I could not manage. This town needs more than I can give alone. The stable filled with uneasy silence. Mary Patterson stepped forward, her face wet with tears. "My husband would be dead if she hadn't known what to do," she said. "I don't care what Boston said about her, I care what I saw." Others spoke up. Miners with bandaged arms, wives holding children, men who had watched their friends dragged from the mine. "She saved Tommy. She saved Jim. She saved my boy." The wave of voices built, and Brennan's jaw tightened as he realized he was losing the room. Doc Mitchell lifted his trembling hands. "Dr. Wynne can work with me," he said. "Under my authority, under my roof. I accept the risk." Brennan's eyes narrowed. "If anyone dies, it's on you." Mitchell met his gaze. "Then it's on me." Brennan looked at the injured men, at their families, at the gratitude that filled the stable. He could not fight them all. He turned sharply and walked out, leaving behind a cold draft of anger. Clara stood in the quiet that followed, her heart still pounding. Samuel leaned close. "You did not back down," he said. Clara swallowed. "I'm tired of running." The next weeks came fast and full. Clara's medical case was no longer hidden under a bed. It moved through Pine Hollow openly, carried in her hand, like a flag she refused to lower. Doc Mitchell gave her a small house behind his office to use as a clinic. Together they treated the mine injuries and the ordinary troubles that never stopped in a frontier town. And then, one morning, a miner named Jack Holloway stumbled into the clinic with fever blazing in his skin. His eyes were glassy. A rash spread across his chest in angry spots. Clara's stomach dropped as she recognized it. Typhus. The word was a hammer in her head. She had seen it once back east, in crowded streets where sickness moved like fire through dry grass. Pine Hollow was even more vulnerable. Close quarters, shared bedding, hard lives, little rest. Clara moved at once. She isolated Jack. She went to the barracks and found the lice, the filthy blankets, the other men already burning with fever. She ordered the healthy out, and the sick separated. She made them wash. She burned bedding. She scrubbed floors with harsh soap until hands cracked. People complained. People panicked. People begged to keep their blankets and clothes because winter still lived in the mountains at night. Clara did not bend. "This is bigger than comfort," she told them. "This is life and death." Cases spread anyway. A shopkeeper's wife, a child from the schoolhouse, an old man who had not been near the barracks. The town council called a meeting, and fear filled the room like thick fog. Clara stood before them and gave them hard truth in simple words. Quarantine, cleaning, rules that would feel cruel but would save lives. She told them what would happen if they refused. She said the deaths would come quickly, and they would come in piles. Samuel stood and backed her in front of everyone. Mary Patterson backed her. Miners backed her. Even John Brennan backed her, though his eyes stayed sharp with worry. "But what about the mine?" Brennan asked. "If we shut down, folks will starve." "We screen workers," Clara said. "We isolate anyone sick. We keep the mine running with strict rules." Brennan nodded once. "The mine will pay for supplies," he said, as if admitting it cost him something. "We will do this." For days, Clara barely slept. She moved between the quarantine house and the clinic, checking fevers, changing bandages, forcing water into mouths too weak to drink. She watched for breathing problems. She watched for delirium. She watched for the moment a body began to lose the fight. It was during those days that John Brennan came to her again, but not as an enemy. He came as a father. "My daughter," he said, voice breaking. "Sarah's in labor. Something's wrong." Quote. Clara ran to the Brennan house and found Sarah pale and exhausted, the baby trapped in a position that would not allow birth. The midwife's hands were helpless. Doc Mitchell's hands shook. Brennan tried to argue when Clara took command. Then he saw his daughter's face and stopped. Pride fell away. "Save her," he whispered. "Please." Clara worked through the long hours with sweat on her brow and fear in her chest. She turned the baby from inside, a risky move that could have killed both mother and child. She heard the baby's heartbeat slowing. She pushed past her own trembling and did what had to be done. When the baby finally cried, the sound cut through the room like sunlight. Sarah sobbed with relief. Brennan sagged at the wall, tears on his cheeks, not caring who saw them. He took Clara's hand afterward. "I was wrong about you," he said. "I was a fool. You saved my child." Clara's voice was quiet. "Then stand by what you see, not what you fear." He nodded. "I will." The epidemic still raged, but the town's spirit changed. People stopped whispering about Clara like she was a danger. They started speaking her name like it was a lifeline. Even so, danger came from farther away than the mine or the sickbeds. One afternoon, a stranger knocked at Clara's door. He wore fine clothes and carried a leather satchel. His voice carried the East in every word. "I'm Dr. William Thornton," he said, "Territorial Health Officer. I'm here to investigate a typhus outbreak and reports of an unlicensed physician." Clara's blood turned cold. She showed him everything anyway: the quarantine, the records, the treatments, the lives saved. Thornton watched with the hard eyes of a man trained to look for mistakes, but he could not deny what he saw. Then he pulled out a letter. Nathaniel Ashford. The name hit Clara like a fist. The banker from Boston, the man who had destroyed her. He had found her again and was trying to bury her a second time. Thornton read the complaint and looked up. "He wants you arrested," he said. "He claims you're dangerous.